Hello, Mr. Nidal. Welcome to Ideas Unlocked. I hope today I'm going to unlock some new ideas. I want to get straight into it and ask you, what is a diet? How can you define a diet? I can see the term diet is being misused, not just in our country, but all over the world. When you say diet, it has to be something healthy. How would you define it?
Universally, diet defines as a scientific term, as a biochemistry term, diet consists something that you intake, substances that you intake in your body, and those substances do functions such as building materials, gives you energy, gives you protection, or just plain entertain you, you know. When it comes to the diet, diet is in a way normal, specific way of the biological organisms from the for the most easiest form of organisms, for the most primitive form of organisms like bacteria, like also viruses or some form of some form of asparagus to basically make them live by feeding and by ingesting substances that make them in a way tick. Substances what make them alive. Chemical substances, once ingested, they make them live. They give them energy. They give them protections. They give them organism function, and in a sense, they give us necessary, in a sense, power, in a sense, fuel to basically run off in a way. That's the basic form of the, in a way, biochemistry term of feeding and diet. When it comes to diet, diet is, in a sense, when it comes to the humans, it varies. The diet by itself is, the term diet is for the last 50 years, the term is kind of contaminated by false gurus, health gurus, health fitness coaching and everything, something like that. It's been contaminated in a sense that a diet is some kind of a strict form that you need to follow, some uniform one way diet, one way of eating, something strictly that you kind of need to follow, like a soldier, like a procedure, basically like a procedure or an order which soldiers need to follow. This is basically in the new, for the last 50 years, and now the definitions of a diet. But diet is not only that. Diet is basically a way of you ingesting what your organism needs. Basically, what the organism needs in order for, first of all, the organism to survive, to keep the organism going, give them energy, ingest building material for the organism to make your immune system work, to make your organs work, to make your eyesight work, and also ingesting a protective material such as minerals, vitamins, enzymes, antioxidants, flavonoids, carotenoids, in a way that basically diet is the way of ingesting, in a way scientific term, ingesting substances what the organism needs in order for the organism to function properly, in order for the immune system to function properly, and in order for the even regular mental system can psychologically that can function in a way. That's a diet. Diet needs to consist of, quite simply, of things what the organism needs in order for the organism to function properly. If make the organism lack in function, then we could, in a sense, have a disease and have an organism or have entire physiological structure in a way reorganized so that the organism can get diseased. And that's why it's always necessary for the organism, in a simple terms of a diet, or with inputs in the organism, substances which make him function properly, such as vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, and everything, etc.
You said that diet helps us survive, one of the things, but we evolved so much that we don't have to survive anymore, like most of the people in the world. How can we still listen to our body needs, and make good decisions? What I'm trying to ask is, let's say I'm hungry now, and my body tells me, Damir, you need chips. Bring 2 chips, you need Coca-Cola. How can we program our body to tell us directly, okay, you don't need chips, you need something healthy? To distinguish, let's say, a mind and body, so we don't have to force ourselves, as you said, like a soldier, eat healthy, it's a procedure, you have to keep going. How can we stimulate our body and program it so we have like automatic response that say, okay, let's eat salad, let's eat fried chicken, or I don't know, something healthy. I know fried chicken, depending on who you ask, is healthy, but you get the point.
Chicken is healthy in a way, but if you cook it in a way properly. Now let's go back to the, in a way, history. For most of the, well, according to the anthropologists, for most of modern, we would say Homo sapiens, we existed in basically 99% of the form that we existed. We existed in a form of hunt and gatherers, basically around. This is some would say modern Homo sapiens exist around 1,000,000 years. I don't know if that figure is correct, but let's say 1,000,000 years. During that form, basically we survived by hunting and gathering our food. We didn't have a permanent settlement. Having that in mind, we always moved. We moved into small hordes of a couple of people, tens of people in a way. You kind of define that as a village, but from one location to another location. And our diet is diverse. By being hunter-gatherers for 90% of our human existence, our body in a way our body is adapted through the, we would say, millions, or maybe 100,000, couple of 100,000 years to the hunter-gatherer diet. Thus, this diet was so diverse. When it comes to the diets, yes, humans did eat meat. Yes, humans did eat plants. We were in a way mostly plant-based, but with maybe 20% of our diet consisted of animal products, mostly meat. Basically, the humans mostly eat diverse seeds, vegetables, fruits, mostly in a way, seeds in general, and some animal products, such as the animals that we hunted down and used to eat. That was our main food consistency. So the main food consistency of us is mostly plant-based and a little bit of meat. Basically, yes, we do eat meat, that's so fine, but meat is not our main consistent stuff that we need to survive. No, plants are, carbohydrates are, proteins are, and we can find proteins everywhere in a way. But that was our main diet, which in a way consists of things we found in woods, in nature, and so on. As we go further, once man discovered agriculture, discovered in a way that he can use seeds and to again reseed it and make plantation of bananas, of potatoes, of paprika, or whatever. Man discovered that he now doesn't have to go and hunt food, animals, well, vegetables and fruits mostly, that he can now just gather enough seeds, plant them, make a permanent settlement, and that he can grow and accumulate his harvest. When it comes to hunter-gatherers, in a way, that was, I would say, the hunter-gatherers had the most profound and the most diverse diet ever. Like, it consisted of all kinds of plants, all kinds of seeds, vegetables. Anyway, when it comes to the plant diet, mushrooms, very diverse. And when it comes to hunter-gatherer styling, in a way, that mode of life was not much, in a way, physically exerting to a man. I mean, basically, for example, men would go maybe in the morning, hunt some squirrels or some pigs or some whatever they can find in the forest. Women will maybe stay at home, kind of, well, not at the tribe, fix something out, take care of the children, or go to the forest, gather some berries, strawberries, or whatever. They will gather food, everything that's necessary, and they will just eat. The life was very simple at that. And when it comes to physical exertion, there wasn't a lot of physical exertion when it comes to it, and that's why their bones are perfectly preserved. When it comes to when we find fossilized hunter-gatherers, basically that time period, we find their bones perfectly preserved. No long-term illnesses such as osteoporosis or rheumatoid arthritis. We would call that reuma, That's why because the people didn't physically exert themselves so much, and because their diet was so good and so diverse, and so, I mean, they have everything which is necessary in order for the diet to be perfectly sufficient of all nutrients, micro and macro, that they were basically in excellent health. Now, as the saying goes, the trouble arose when we discover agriculture. When we discover agriculture, that will mean harder physical labor. And
But
not
can I just stop you for a second?
Please.
What do you mean by perfect health? What's like your definition of this?
Well, I believe it's kind of bad that I stated perfect there. There's no perfect health. In a way, their status of the bones, and also later of the bones when we carbonate everything, technology to, in a way, assess their, in a way, physical health, it is very good. I mean, they were in very good shape, both physiologically, well, mentally, well, no one can tell. But physiologically, they were in a really good state, very, very good state of mind, not mind. Physiologically, of the body, physically body was perfectly in a perfect state. Not a lot of problem with standard
bones,
problems
the
with bones,
stuff they could already find.
Yeah. Their teeth were perfect basically because their diet was in a way diverse, but consisted of a lot of fiber and not a lot of cavities, well, as you did. But in that sense, because they didn't have a lot of physical labor, that's the main thing. Not a lot of physical labor, and a very rich and diverse diet. That's the main thing. That kind of, in a way, made them to have a very good physical and physiological status. As I now we are going in a way history around 15 to 12,000 years Mesopotamia, when we, in a sense, we're going to simplify it a bit, but in a way Mesopotamia, when man discovered seeds and when, in a way, man discovered agriculture. Yes, that left man in a way stationary. Then villages arise. Man invented villages. Okay, villages. Man is stationary. And then, because man is stationary, yes, he needs to take care of his crops. He needs to take care of his cattle, his cows, his goats and everything, what chickens, and in a way, man also domesticated animals, which he was gonna use for his consumption. Okay, perfect. That left man with, in a way, safe amount of food, in a way, in a safe place, but it, in a sense, gave him a lot of labor to do and a lot of wasting. Not so much of a rich of a diet. Men have secure food, but not so much a diverse diet as his predecessor from a couple of maybe 1,000 years or whatever knew. Predecessor didn't have a security of a safe meal each day, but in a way, by not having that security, they were, well, in a way, hunter-gatherers, freelancers, what you're gonna do? Freelancers in a way. Gathering, you sometimes good, sometimes bad fruits, depending on the day, but in a way they make it too. But when it comes to our modern farmer, as quote unquote modern farmer, the farmer, yes, he did have in a way steady supply of food, but the food was not that qualitative, in terms of its nutrient status. But yeah, they didn't have plenty of grains, but still the quality lacked, and man exerted himself in a very, very difficult physical labor. And when it comes to the physical labor, the man in a way started to get diseased from all kinds of diseases, most notably rheumatoid arthritis, which you find with people with hard physical labor, basically.
But you mean by physical
workers.
labor, you mean like building architectures, buildings,
Yes,
working on a
architecture,
farm?
working on a farm. Yes, exactly. Because as you can see, hunter-gatherers didn't make agriculture, didn't make villages, did not make walls. They just, in a way, had some kind of a tent. They built up some, I don't know, some grill or whatever, and that's pretty much it. Not very physically demanding. But now the man needed to build villages, needed to build castles,
Well,
needed to defend
when you
crops
think about
in a
it,
way.
at that time, building a house was very challenging. Like when you look from this position, like when we have all these machines, when you have logistics, when you know where to get materials, it is easy. But at that time, imagine there's like, as you said, like a small tribe, and everyone wants to build a house for themselves. So they have to, they have to make like a family. At that time, there was like always like 5-10 children. Half of them already die. Rest has to help around the house, pick up the rocks to build the house. So, but I want to ask you something else. Like when we go back to modern time, do you see any improvement from that time? You said like when we start building homes, when we started like building civilizations, we start having like, how do you say it, bone problems, heart diseases.
In a way, disease. We started in a way being diseased, both infectious or non-infectious disease. When it comes to our ancestors, hunter-gatherers, not a lot of recorded cases of infections. Well, they couldn't record it, they couldn't write it down because they didn't have lettering. But in a way, because the tribe was small, dozens of people which knew each other, there wasn't that much chance of an infection or an epidemic. But now, when we kind of gather larger groups of people, villages, cities, obviously there is a risk of infections. First of all, infections like cholera, like maybe water supply being poisoned, but half of the village can get cholera, maybe 20% can die of that. That's one of the risks of being integrated into our civilization, I guess. But when it comes to us, again, okay, our also diet consisted of not so qualitative food, well, quote unquote not so qualitative food, but mostly our farmer diet, consisted of mostly grains, bread, processed bread. Okay, fine, it's still fine, refined process, and vegetables and food. That could, in a way, still be a manageable diet, but not with the richness of the hunter-gatherer diets. Yeah, that's the situation. When you go to the modern time, again, we have to go maybe two centuries ago. When it comes to industrial revolutions, before industrial revolutions, most of the population were farmers. I mean, most of the population were farmers, and it all consisted. Then that kind of changed when, well, we're saying that in a sense of a Western society like the UK, where they in a way first of all industrialized. Most of that society, farmers became from farms go to the cities where they work in a factory. Again, the lack of proper working conditions and the lack of proper food again left people very miserable and poor. They did improve some life to the extent, some of the life, at least people have in a way safe supply of food. Yeah, that's all. They're not in a danger of starving to death. They are working in the factory, but still, the quality of that food is not in a state that will kind of give them all the protection that they need.
So, if I understood correctly, let's say last 200 years, but let's focus mostly on last 50 when we have a lot of when we have capitalism. We have a lot more food to eat every day, but it is less quality. But when we go, as you said, like when we were hunter-gatherers, when we were hunting animals, picking up mushrooms, berries, etc., we had less food, but it was more rich. It was more nutrient rich. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Is that it?
Actually, that's it. And also, when it comes to the present time, obviously, the more selection of food, but most of that, I mean, no one will be, at least here in this part of Europe, no one will starve to death. People are now in a danger from eating too much to get disease. Obviously, most of Western society, most of it. Maybe when it comes to Africa, they, in a way, rapidly started to eradicate extreme poverty. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good, obviously. But when it comes to our modern time, yes, we are always in danger. When it comes to energy and, in a way, proteins, we are not in the danger or deficiency of it. We have lots of energy, lots of carbs, proteins, etc. What we now lack, at least modern society, we lack the nutrients. And lacking the nutrients, we need to do a proper selection of food by itself. And also comes the problem of basically technological processes in food. Basically, the foods, in a sense, need to go to our plate. That need to go through technological procedure to enrich the food, to protect the food from bacteria, from mold, to add additives, to conserve it. Some of the food can lose its nutrients and then again needs to be reimbursed into them. Basically, it's a process. Maybe tomatoes, in a way, in the process they need to go through a lot of process, technological procedures in factories, packaging and everything. And during the procedure, tomatoes can lose their nutrients, their vitamins, maybe half of them. And then the industry needs to again re-stain them and inputs them. Sometimes the industry does that, sometimes not. And you are left basically with the tomato, maybe one potato, which on his mass, etc., like 100 grams of tomato, you have half of the nutrient missing, or sometimes even 60% of nutrients missing. Things like vitamins, well, in a way,
But
vitamins.
are you talking about the Western countries
Western, yeah,
or
Western countries, Bosnia,
60 up to
up to
60%?
60, up to 60%, you know. So basically,
In which time?
the present
You
time,
you mean until
until
farmers pick
you
up the
go,
food
and yeah,
until it gets
exactly,
to
until
the
farmers pick up the
market?
food, until you get them at the market.
So to combat this problem, the lack of energy, let's say an average
Nutrients.
guy, Joe Schmo, wakes up and says, okay, I'm fat, I'm not just fat, I'm unhealthy, I'm miserable, I want to change. But he goes to, with this knowledge, he knows that, okay, if I take this cucumber or green salad or tomato, it is not really rich
Giving
in
him,
nutrients,
yeah, it
in
is rich in
vitamins.
nutrient. Obviously, it's better to eat tomatoes or paprika, or I don't know. That's better. Always better to eat that than chips. You will get the nutrients at least 60% what's left of it, of the natural nutrients. Yes, you will get that. But to combat that, we would need, in a way, to supplement. Supplement. We're going to use food supplement, but not a lot. Yes, the food supplements, because of the industrialized process, are necessary, but not as much as what people would think. Maybe in a sense, because when it comes to the micronutrients, they are necessary, yes, but in very small quantities, you know, and in a way, naturally, etc. If you wanna naturally go to an intake, basically on your size, vitamin C, you just eat basically one how do you say, the one coffee, basically one, like a coffee size mug of strawberries. How do you say? Basically a mug of strawberries, maybe half of that. But basically around 100 grams of strawberries can get you all through when it comes to your vitamin C, even more than that, basically.
So, what
Depending on the,
advice would you give to buyers when they want to improve their diet? What should they choose? How should they think when buying these vegetables, fruits, groceries? What is the mentality they have to say? Okay, my
first
logic
of all,
behind reasoning: I should take 20% fruits, 20% juices. What's the logic?
in a way, for the logic, well, when it comes to my plate, more than half of your plate, more than half of your plate needs to be plant oriented. In a way, needs to be uh, vegetables or fruits, more than half, and then rest goes to the, in a way, starch, such as uh, nuts, beans, basically bread, you know, spaghetti, in a way, starch, basically starch food, potatoes. But more than half of your plate, what you eat, basically lunch, needs to be, in a sense, fruits and vegetables. More than half of your plate. The rest will be, you know, like, in a sense, meat or bread or something like that. Bread is not bad, in a way, important. I mean, you can live without the bread. But when it comes to the consumers buying fruits and vegetables, that's not something like a side dish. You do go make some lunch, make maybe beef with potatoes, and you say, just as a side dish, I'm gonna have a little bit of salad. No, salad needs to be more than half of your plate, more than half, in order for you to enter enough nutrients to support your organism, to input the enough protective materials, such as obviously vitamins and minerals, flavonoids, carotenoids, and all the basically more than half of your plate, in a way. Well, that's, in a way, practical way of saying to the consumer, needs to consist from vegetables and fruits, basically, in a way, and the rest will kind of go to maybe meats or bread or uh, starch, or I cannot say the word basically.
Carbohydrates.
Carbohydrate, yeah, what you for breakfast. Pahulce. I can't remember the word.
I can't remember also. Cornflakes.
Yeah, not cornflakes. The basically plant-based whole food. Whole food. Apologize. Whole food basically. I can't remember.
No problem.
Well,
I want to ask you. So we have these let's say good foods. What are some things that in a Western society, some food that we are overeating that we should at best avoid totally? What are some one thing that comes to my mind is, for example, sugar. We are getting drugged by sugar.
My professor, Nidal Šabić, basically Nidal Šabić, I would just say that he's a father of nutrition in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Basically, I really love that man, and he's an expert, great expert. He retired, but he will be a professor emeritus. Of course, you can keep a good man down. At least he's 70, but he's fine. When it comes to bad food, he kind of says there are, in a sense, four bad foods, and he kind of defined it as 4 evils. First evil, basically 4 white evils. 4 white evils without kind of sounding the wrong way. Number 1 is obviously sugar. I mean, the definition, for the last at least 50 years, we have a lot of evidence that sugar is killing you. Sugar is killing you. By the way, simply going through your bloodstream, damaging your arteries, damaging your liver, damaging your organs, and in a way instabilizing your insulin. So sugar makes insulin go up and down. Sugar can greatly also go you into diabetes. You have connection you need to disease, and also you can get a lot of disease as a result of sugar. Not just cavities. That's basically nothing. You can there's more serious disease by basically devouring sugar. That's one white death. Basically, what we need to avoid. Another one is salt. It's white, it's salty, and it's made in Tuzla. Salt. Basically, the salt, as the term goes, yes, we need salt. We need those kind of minerals, but we need it in so low of amount. It is unimaginable how low do we need salt. Basically, it's not that quite of orientation. When it comes to salt, I would always suggest that you always salt a little bit as possible, because as consequences, having too much salt can, in a way, residually lead you to have heart problems, heart pressure problems, insulin kind of interruptions, but mostly heart and vascular disease. And in a sense, some studies go so far as to claim some rheumatoid disease can also be caused by salt. But salt is the number one culprit of the blood pressure problems in the world, salt. And when it comes to salt, we need to ration it and use it as little as possible, because most of the refined foods are salted, pre-salted. Let's say bread. Bread is already pre-salted. Most of the meats that you buy basically in stores are meats. Everything that is refined needs to have salt in them, or something that is canned has some kind of a salt in it, but mostly it's NaCl, salt. Having that in mind, we are surrounded by salt, and one thing that we can do is, all in all, stop using salt. Well, that's obviously impossible, but to just reduce it to a level which will be, in a sense, acceptable, and you won't have to. Basically, it's the situation when you cannot do something by repetition, etc. you always, before you start eating a meal, you salt it. You didn't taste it, you always automatically you saw that from your grandmother or something like that, you salt it. But the grandmother died, heart pressure, but that's another story. But when it comes to salt, you need to be cautious with salt because residually the salt, a lot of salt, will get you diseased. That's the one, and they will kind of disrupt everything, the entire physiologically of the organism. Another of the white death is flour. Flour, ordinarily like flour, you make to make breads, pretzels, salmoni, and things like that. Bread, in a way, flour and sugar, chemically, and they're all, in a sense, sugar, and they are not much of a difference. There is also a saying like, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. That couldn't be much the same. Basically, ordinary flour, ordinary tablespoon sugar is 90% the same thing. Now, just imagine how many of pretzels, how many of bread do people eat? The people kind of say, I don't eat anything sweet, I don't eat pies, I don't eat whatever, but they eat a half of bread. Half of bread will kind of get you, like, if you kind of want to run a marathon from Sarajevo to Tuzla, the half of bread will be enough, basically. But people use that for the breakfast, People need to, in a sense, by example, that basically flour is equivalent to sugar. And also that needs to be taken by caution. I don't say eliminate it from the diet, but reduce it. Reduce it to a minimum amount. And a substitute to the bread will be to eat, obviously, rye bread, or we will say black bread, but the term is basically rye bread, when the bread is made from whole grain flour, in a sense. That's why it's necessary to use whole food.
And what is the primary difference between very refined or white bread and rye bread? Why is it important that we eat the black?
White bread contains a lot of salt and sugar. White bread is basically just sugar, carbohydrates, ordinary sugar, and salt, and some food additives, something like that. But when it comes to the rye bread, they're made of a whole food, basically a whole plant flour, and that bread contains fiber, it contains vitamins, it contains minerals, it contains some vitamin D, well, in some traces, but it contains basically all the nutrients which will be necessary when you ingest carbohydrates, which in a way power you. Obviously, carbohydrates power you, but also those carbohydrates give you fiber to give you, better persistence of your colon, in a sense, to make you easier to go to the bathroom. That's what the fiber, their main function. They get the rye bread, we call them black bread, gives you vitamins. And when it comes to the glycemic index, since the white bread is, in a sense, equivalent to sugar, once you ingest the white bread, your sugar spikes up massively, obviously. And if you are not doing anything, not training, not going for a walk on anything, that sugar will, in a sense, accumulate and you will get fat. But when it comes to the rye bread, there is no high spike. The sugar from that bread is slowly being released into the bloodstream, and it's slowly going to your organism, keeping you in an energy, not dropping the energy as the sugars do. Because sugar, when it comes to the glycemic index, sugar, once you, for example, eat one entire, we will say, chunk of bread, your sugar spikes immediately. the spike is immediate. Yes, you have energy, everything fine, running. But because of because of the glycemic index, because of that sugar amount is fast going to the bloodstream, it will also run down faster. And then it can always happen that you will kind of eat whole wheat, or when it comes to the bread or a chocolate or whatever, you were energized for maybe an hour, and then it very fastly drops, and then you kind of lose on I'm not feeling well. The sugar basically level drops instantly, and that's really not good for the organism. Those spikes, ups in sugar, I mean in a sense that high spikes in sugars and lows in sugar. That's very not good for the organism, and most people experience that basically, having spikes of sugar and lows of sugar, and basically that's a procedure like you kind of feel unwell, you kind of say, I need something sweet to eat. That's a trap. Basically, you're teaching your organism to mostly power you by white sugar, which is totally wrong, which is totally, the organism runs on sugar, yeah, but the organism must run on a quality sugar, such as starch, etc., like potatoes, like rice, like rye bread. The organism needs to run on that kind of sugars. It's the same sugar once the organism converts it. But when it comes to the glycemic index, the organism wants a lower glycemic index of the sugar. The organism, you get diseased if basically there are a lot of spikes in the sugar, etc., when you're eating white bread. I was sorry. I can gather off, go off when it comes to the white bread. When it comes to the rye bread is more necessary, and because it contains most of these vitamins, most of these protective materials, and also when it comes to the sugar, it is good sugar. Basically, it doesn't do you a sugar spike. It slowly releases the sugar during the day, during an hour, and keeps you enough energized to feel comfortable, keep you're not hungry in a way. And the main thing is you get vitamins and you get good sugar, and with a good glycemic index. Sugar is released in a more natural, slower way. That's the main thing.
And you forgot to say the fourth one. So there is sugar, salt, flour, and
white refined fats.
White refined. Okay.
Fats. I'm gonna explain. Any white animal or plant fats which are so white or nearly to white are totally unhealthy. Why? Because they are high in fatty acids, high fatty acids, etc. Liver basically is high in cholesterol and fatty acid. All the foods, well, mostly animal products, some maybe milk products or something like that, which are high in high fats, lipids, basically fats, which are so high in fats, are totally unhealthy for the organism. They cause you blood clots, they cause you heart attacks, they even cause some sort of a cancers. Yes, they are very bad. Basically, white fats from basically, I don't know, there is a term in Bosnian. You're familiar with the term loj, things like that.
Fat. Yeah.
Fat, basically.
Very fat.
Fat. All the white fat. The whiter the fat, the sooner you are fat and dead, basically. The more whiter the fat, the more high in bad fats, bad lipids, high in lipids, which can cause you to have a it can cause you atherosclerosis, which can cause clots within the arteries, which can cause you a whole range of diseases, but mostly having to do with strokes and some form of cancer. When it comes to the foods which are high in this, in a way, bad fats, are unfortunately, they can be mostly found in animal products, but mostly to the fatty parts of the animal, such as the liver or the skin or whatever. But most animal products, such as beef, such as well, red meat, or most of red meats in a way contains high fats, high unrefined, not unrefined, high quantity of fatty acids, high fatty acids, which are very bad. Foods like, well, I also said most of red meat, chicken, yeah, but chicken meat is in a way safe to eat. Okay, it has fatty acids, but it's in a way the proteins is quality and it's not that fat. Fish also have that kind of acid, but in a way they're safe. In a way, when it comes to meat, you're always safe to eat, in a sense, chicken chicken and fish meat. When it comes to red meats like beefs, which the American diet is consistent of beefs, of red meat, you be in a sense lucky to avoid those food as much as you can, and to always focus. Well, most people eat meat, but to mostly focus on fish or on chicken in a way.
Thank you for this class, but there are two things I don't agree with you. I understand why you say it. There is a background, but I think there is more story, which I would try to say. First thing is the salt. So I agree with you that a lot of refined products, such as pretzels, such as basically 99% of the food in markets, have already pre-added salts that are one of the reasons why they're added is because they preserve the food.
Yes.
Other one is because salt makes your stomach crave for more food. One reason for this is, for example, when you go to a bar, one thing they give you is salty crackers, salty pretzels, salty, what's the name? The peanut. You crave to drink, to eat more, to consume more. But when you take, for example, organizations such as FDA in America, they, for the last 20 or 30 years, they promote eat less salt. As an individual who cooks, eat less salt, eat less salt. But they've been having more and more problems of cardiovascular nature, basically a lot of more problems. But when you compare another country, South Korea, they have a dish called kimchi, which is basically like a salted cabbage, very salted. And this is part of their culture, where they eat it before every meal, every dinner and lunch. It is something similar like in when it's a bairam, you eat topa before everything. This is how they eat kimchi, but before the whole year, during the whole year. And South Korea is one of the top 10 healthiest people in the world. So I think there is this misconception, because I agree, they put too much salt in refined products that you buy off shelf. But when you cook and you salt for yourself, I think in some way it's good to listen to your body if you need more salt or less, because it gives you in some way it gives you vitamins, it gives you as I understood,
minerals. Yeah, minerals.
If I understood from one of the classes I had before, I'm gonna speak in a very very amateur level, but there is a process where energy, glycogen, no, it's not. Never mind. Energy that you eat,
please go on.
Converted until it gets to the cells. Well, salt helps in this process to help to it helps energy get to the cell. What about the fats? you're right about white fats, mainly from cows. There is a huge problem in a farming community because, especially now with this pandemic, with this world crisis, with the Russian and Ukraine war, a lot of food for cows is getting more and more expensive. But one of the things that is relatively cheap is corn. Livestock gets fed by corn, and at the end, cows develop a lot of fats that when you cut the meat, you can see in between the muscles, you can see a lot of fats. This fats, as you said, is unhealthy. It has higher level of, I'm not sure which type of lipids.
Bad lipids
yes,
in a way.
Yes.
High lipids.
But I want to touch about the cholesterol. Thank you for mentioning. I see this everywhere. One misconception about cholesterol. People say cholesterol is bad. Okay, but that is...
We produce cholesterol in our organism, naturally.
But
most
the question
of the cholesterol is produced by us.
But the question is, which cholesterol? Because there is HDL and LDL, or good and bad cholesterol. So usually, for example, when you eat something like a butter, like olive oil, usually these levels of good cholesterol and bad cholesterol are roughly the same. And as I know, the function of good and bad cholesterol is that bad cholesterol usually goes in your arteries, veins, etc. And as you said, it creates this fat buildup that can cause problems. But other cholesterol or good cholesterol usually go relatively together when they flow through the bloodstream, and they pick it up and they transfer it to not stomach, but to the cells, and you use it as energy in form of ketones. So there is some products that are, as you said, like cholesterol levels, good and bad cholesterol, are relatively good, such as olive oil. That is one of the reasons they use it for thousands of years in Greece, in Spain, in Italy. But I know, like in our culture, we have we cook a lamb, and it's very very greasy, very fat. And usually these kind of fats are, these kind of meats and fats have higher level of bad cholesterol, which over time build up, and you have blood clots, cardiovascular problems.
When it comes to that kind of food, in a sense, like when we take, for example, as tradition starts every 1st of the May, tradition is that always barbecue or putting something up through the to the lamb and just cooking the lamb, baking the lamb. That's the tradition. That's all fine. You can do that. We are, in a sense, going back to the balanced diet. Basically, going back to your first question, diet is, in a sense, inputting all that is necessary in the right quantities during the day or during the week or during the lifetime. You can eat that fat. Obviously, you can eat that, but everything needs to be eaten in moderation. There's, in a way, a ruling in that for the proper nutrition. Basically, 3 rules. It needs to be diverse when it comes to the meals, diverse vegetables, fruits, meats, also obviously fruits and seeds and everything. It needs to be, in a sense, spaced out in a couple of meals a day, small meals, and it needs to be eaten in moderation. Our entire organism, in a sense, when the nutrition is, in a sense, proper, when we basically, you just need to follow the food pyramids, and in a sense, you are good to go. Basically, food pyramids kind of describes you. The beginning of the food pyramids are the starch, which powers you. The other is fruit. Okay, fruit can also power you, but fruits, in a sense, give you refreshment, gives you minerals, give you vitamins. And once you go up to the food pyramids, things like proteins, meats, and cheeses, and very top portion of the pyramid is something that you need to consume very less, such as butter, bad fats, sweets, chocolate, something like that. You can consume that, obviously. I mean, no one is immune, but in moderation. But you always need to have basically a knowledge of the main thing of the pyramid. The main thing of the pyramids, basically like three parts of those pyramids, four floors of the pyramids, needs to be consumed in a sense always. And main consumption, main diet consistency needs to be of those dates, basically starch, fruits, vegetables, legumes, meats, and then rest is basically things like bread, things like chocolate, and basically you need to have that kind of a orientation, and also spacing the meals, separately. When you have a breakfast, then you have a intermediate meal, then you have a lunch, then you also have like a intermediate meal, mostly fruits, and that's why the organism basically needs that. And it's in a sense spaced like that because the organism is basically been adapted. We're also going back to the hunter-gatherers to eat that kind of food, basically.
I have to ask you one personal question.
Please.
What is your diet? How do you eat?
I don't eat. Well, when it comes to my diet, I would say that, roughly in a way, it is oriented around the food pyramid, in a sense. That most of my meals, in a sense, I would say 70% are oriented plant-based. The rest is meat, and some portion I really try also myself keep it at lower profiles. Things like sweets, like bread. I try to keep this obviously very portionally low. But when it comes to my diet, it's in a way consists, I would say maybe 70% of fruits and vegetables, and basically whole food diet. Because say I like that diet, I kind of grown accustomed of that diet, and my organism and everyone's organism would, in a sense, in a couple of weeks get adapted to that diet, and in that diet kind of leaves you with that you get a lot of, most of your all the what the organism needs, protective elements, carbohydrates, all the nutrients necessary, micro and macro nutrients that is necessary. But basically, in a sense, if I kind of describe it, maybe 70% whole food, plant-based, the rest is maybe consistent, maybe 70 to 80%, but the rest is kind of consistent of meat and maybe some milk products, but I really eat less of that, and occasionally some chocolates and food. But occasionally you can do that. But it needs to be oriented around plant-based, because phytonutrients, plants, will provide you with all the protective elements necessary. Plants are the boss, and plants are the main. Yes, also plants can provide you with all the proteins, but if you still want to eat meat, as I do, I also like to eat meat. Not that much, but I like to eat meat. Obviously, get your protein from meat, but also with no problem, you can get with no problem all your protein from plants. That's also a misconception. But the main thing is what the plants give you. They give you all the nutrients necessary for you, and that's why you need to eat them. Basically, in a way, not that of a limit. When it comes to fruits, when it comes to World Health Organization kind of recommends that you eat around 450 grams of fruits a day, basically to keep you all in check, kind of keep you out of diseases, like such as cancer or whatever. But when it comes to vegetables, you can, in a sense, eat as much as you can. There is no like a nutritional limit of it. There is only a limit on regarding the organism. When the organism eats vegetables or fruits, in a sense, because of the content of the fiber and everything, the organism will kind of get fed up, and your kind of organism will tell you, oh, that's enough. I don't need to eat anymore. I'm full, and you cannot eat what the organism needs. The problem is always arising once you eat refined sugars. And then the organism doesn't have those natural nutrients and fiber to, in a sense when the organism is full. And so that's why you can eat like chocolates, breads, in a sense, indefinitely. And the organism will not send you signals you're full, and because the organism is lacking things like fiber to, in a way, send you signal you're full, you ingested enough from carbohydrates, now you're full, you don't have to eat anymore, because those, in a sense, bad carbs, carbs such as breads, chocolates, candy, doesn't give your organism a chance to tell you you're full. It only remains when you, in a sense, stop eating sweets, something like chocolate or candy, where the organism kind of tells you that that food is enough, don't eat anymore, when your glycemic level is so up that you can, in a sense, go into sugar coma. And that's when the organism tells you, stop eating this candy, I cannot take it anymore. Basically, when you are, in a sense, a little bit in danger. That basically. But when you eat normally carbs, such as vegetables, potatoes, the organism, because of the presence of the natural fibers, will tell you, oh, you eaten enough, I'm full of energy, you don't have to eat anymore.
How, when you mentioned candy, how can a person break a bad cycle? Like sugar has we can say, it's like a drug. It drugs you, it gets you addicted. How can we break this stigma? How can we break this bad circle of just eating sugar? Like in the morning you eat like bad cereals. Then during the day you crash, you drink Coca-Cola, you spike up, then you eat some dish, you go sleep. How can we break this cycle?
First of all, we're gonna start by raising our children. Basically, we start by raising these good habits of good eating, of eating good nutrient food, proper food with our children. We need to teach our children. First of all, that's the starting point. Teach our children to eat healthy. That's the main thing that we do. Basically, as they would say, cut it in its core. First of all, we need to teach our children, raise them to eat proper food, that they stay away from bad foods, obviously, and so that this can be kind of, in a sense, imprinted in their mind, that the good foods are good for a reason, obviously, give you energy, give you nutrients, give you vitamins, everything which is necessary for you to grow up strong or whatever. But the bad foods are the ones bad for a reason. They can give you cavity, they can give you disease, etc. Basically, that's the first thing. But when it comes to when somebody is already an adult, 25, 30, 40 years old, it all starts with an individual and an approach to the individual. Basically, we need to approach him that, in a sense, his lifestyle is some lifestyle which is killing him. And I presume that he wouldn't want to be killed. He would kind of want to reverse that. And we kind of gradually start to wean him off, in a sense, of those bad foods by introducing quality foods, good foods, rich foods in diets, fruits, vegetables, gradually introducing the person. That's basically the individual approach. And also, we are always going back to the individual. The individual must have a will to basically change his diet. If the individual doesn't have a will, no psychologist, not even Jordan Peterson can turn him over, basically. In a sense, it always starts with the individual. We need to gradually familiarize the individual with the good foods, with bad foods, basically that his style of eating is killing him, that he will have a lot of trouble in the future, or even might have at the present time the trouble, and slowly introducing him with good foods, with proper nutrition, and gradually wean him off. Because remember, sugar is basically by definition, not definition, by the chemical reactions, it is basically a drug. It is basically a drug, and it needs to be gradually weaned him off. However, the trouble always arises with these, I would say, wannabe nutritionists and dietitians, that they kind of say, I mean, you heard the story, like fat people ask someone, some guy at the gym, guy at the gym kind of looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, what should I do? He said, oh, you don't eat any sugars, don't eat any sweets or anything. And he kind of takes his advice. He doesn't eat sugar, doesn't eat candy for a couple of maybe days, in a sense, because he doesn't have proper guidance. He kind of gets crazy and, eats carrots and everything. And then he always comes back to his original diet. When it comes to the diet, it needs to be gradually explained to the people generally what the benefits of good nutrition, basically the bad things regarding bad nutrition, and gradually the person needs to be introduced to good habits gradually. It only needs to be taken gradually, and so that the person can basically grow accustomed to those foods, to those kind of nutrition. And when it comes to the organism all in all by nature is always the one basically a good thing about the human body, about the human system, and also about the human psyche, is that the human always adapts. Human adapted to eat only sugar, and also human will adapt to wean off sugar and to eat proper nutrition. It's all the matter of adaptation, and I can assure you, every organism is here, it can adapt. Some organism will take a couple of weeks, some will take a couple of months, but the organism will adapt, and the person will gradually go on to, in a sense, healthier lifestyle and a healthier diet. In a sense, it's a process. It's not something like in 2 days that you kind of finish. It's a process. It's a process. The person needs to be kind of driven, forward to that, taken properly with proper advice, proper maybe meal plan, and also a person the main portion of this, the main problem is those reductionist diet, like they reduct everything. That's totally wrong. The organism needs those sugar from candy, not always, but sometimes. If the organism needs, at least if you feel, in a sense, if you're on a new diet, you're started to lose weight or etc. But sometimes you need some sugar, Yes, obviously you can some little bit of sugar, a little bit of chocolate, but don't overdo it. And also get back onto your regular diet, in a sense. It's all a process. It's not like a switch over of a couple of days. It's a process. To some people it takes a couple of weeks, but to most people it takes a couple of months. But it's a process. The organism can pretty much adapt to anything, and the organism will adapt. And also we are also going back to the individual. The individual needs to have a willful diet, and we are also here to help him in a way, in the sense, also motivate him, motivate his will, that he gradually goes on healthier diets, in a sense. I believe I kind of overcomplicated a bit, but in a sense.
A little bit, but it's okay.
A little bit.
A little bit. I want to change a little bit topic. I know you like to read a lot.
Yes.
I know one of your favorite topics is space exploration, everything connected about space, stars. Do you think, are we really alone in the universe?
When you can have the recollection of how old is the universe, I mean 13.6 billion years old, how old is the sun? something like 3 billion years old, and how vast is the space, it is the probability of us being the only, we would say, alive creature in the universe is very low. I mean, when it comes to the size of the universe alone, it's highly likely that there are lives, at least life, outside of our planet. Well, for now, it remains to be found. Intelligent life also, probably, but still, the universe is so vast, and there is no exact way of us going to know that because we cannot explore it. But the possibility, at least through statistics, is that this universe is probably linted with, is probably in a sense full with living creatures, intelligent in a sense, or even alive creatures. But yes, I do believe so, because when it comes to the latest findings in astronomy, well, not the latest, a couple of decades ago, they find out that most of stars formed had some kind of a planet orbiting around them, But it's always safe to, well, it's always, and also they discover multiple planets which are in a sense a Goldilocks zone, as the zone as we are, to sustain liquid water. Whenever the planet can sustain liquid water, there is a possibility of life developing there. And also when it comes to the, at least, which is interesting for me at least, the amino acid. Amino acids are the first form of organic molecules formed. Basically, they form from nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. When you kind of mash it together, you make amino acid. Amino acids are made, proteins are made of that. Basically, when you eat proteins, your organism kind of dissolves those proteins to amino acid, to their building blocks. When it comes to the universe, they found amino acids in meteors, and also the meteors which basically crash landed on Earth. When they did the analyzation, they find, I believe, 3 or 4 amino acids. They are present. Amino acid, okay, they are simple as that, but they are in a sense first inkling of life. And also space probes which went on to explore comets, kind of further, where they kind of approach, I believe that's basically between Earth and Mars's orbit. Some comets, they can approach it and they can drill the drone, not the drone, what's it called, the sonde, I don't know. Basically, the explorer, the robot, drilled that space rock, and it found out, yes, the rocks do have water. Some water is frozen, some is liquid, but also they found amino acid. That's the first inkling of life. Note, amino acids, every cell contains amino acid. Every bloodstream, every protein contains amino acid. Amino acids is, in a way, what the proteins are made of. And if we find a couple of amino acids are there into space, that's the first inkling of because we found building blocks of life, and that's the first inkling of a life possibly being created somewhere in the universe. But for now, most definitely we have found amino acids, which are precursor to life itself, basically. That's the main thing.
I somehow stumbled a few years ago, actually not few, it was I think 2017 or 18.
20 years ago, come on, you're this old.
Yeah. NASA's I think Curiosity rover, they found the water, like they were
Liquid
digging,
water
and
mass, yes.
well, it was frozen, but they have this rover has like a chamber where it puts the content, usually rocks or sand, and in this case it was ice. They heat it to high temperatures, up to 2000 degrees, to destroy this and see what is the
component
stone made of, what is the content of it. And while they were heating water, of course, they didn't heat it to 2000 degrees because it would explode. they found out that it contains some simple bacteria. So it is interesting that so close to us, not even outside of our solar system, there is primitive forms of life, like as you said, like building blocks.
Building blocks for now. We have no building blocks, but we have yet to discover at least fossilized remains of bacteria. That remains to be discovered. I believe that's the main thing that we're gonna find when it comes to that. But the first inkling of that life is also on Mars. When it comes to the ground, you have so-called organic clay. That kind of a clay can react to our basically to oxygen and can in a way oxidize. But still, that's still in a realm of chemistry. You know, for life you need something more intricate. You know, something which can be reproduced. But at least first inkling of life is that we definitely find it amino acids. Well, not just one example, couple of examples on a meteors. Find organic acid. When we kind of go locally, the most probable where we will find at least maybe bacterial life, something like that, will be Jupiter's moon, Europa. Basically Europa, because at the center of Europa, the ocean is, well, the center is in a sense liquid, not the surface, the center. Basically, it's underwater. Basically, it's all liquid. It's heated by the Jupiter's gravity. Basically, it kind of compresses itself and recompresses, thus creating heat, and it is liquid. And there is a possibility that there we will be able to find some organism, at least primitive organism. Amino acid definitely. Yeah.
Well, I didn't understand. The core is water. No.
The core is, in a sense, well, there is a heated core, but around that core, you know, there is liquid water. I maybe didn't explain it properly. Basically, liquid water definitely found on the moon, not on the Jupiter's moon, Europa. And also they find geysers, and also on the surface they find some cracks, some inklings of liquid water, and basically geysers of water. They find that. But going to the conclusion,
is the surface like rock or
ice?
Ah, okay, I understand. It is not Europa, it is Euclideus.
Are you sure? I thought that
I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure.
We can check that. But in a sense, the main thing of the top and the moon of the Jupiter.
I also wanted to mention it. That moon is so fascinating. As you said, geysers. They found out when it erupts. So basically, the surrounding of the Euclideus is ice, 20 kilometers of ice.
Yes.
And because the core is heating the water, there is always a pressure. And every now and then, there is, as you said, geyser.
Yes.
It shoots out the water and also organic compounds. So that is why they think there will be organic life inside, like a living. I think that is the closest we are to actually finding like not human, but like animal.
Primitive,
like alien animal, like a fish or like like constructed organism, not just bacteria or like a
primitive cellular, at least, organism. I mean, if we find that, I'll be quite happy. At least we will know at least that we will not alone in the universe. You know, at least we will have evidence for that. But when it comes to at least the Earth's the closest sun, actually the star to the Earth is 4 light years away, and that closest star has what's it called? The closest star to the Earth.
Andromeda,
yeah, Andromeda galaxy, Andromeda star. They find that basically a planet, well, several planets orbiting that star, but they also find a planet. They named it, I believe so, Kepler or something, or I don't know. But that planet is double the size of the Earth, and the main thing is is in the, they would say, Goldilocks zone of the ellipse of the orientation of the sun, meaning the zone which will allow the planet to have liquid water. Basically, liquid water is a precursor to everything, life, etc. Because, in a sense, life was made in water.
Have you heard, I think last year or 2 years ago, Pentagon released documentation that says there are aliens. Have you heard about it?
Yes, but still lacking the evidence of it, Okay, the government is all fine, but it all kind of runs up into the form of, in a sense, conspiracy theories. They kind of love that. But still, we need further evidence of that. But can you, in a sense, enlighten me regarding that? I'm not quite familiar.
What happened is they found out these aerial vehicles or UFOs that don't have any propulsion, that can move up to 50,000 kilometers. So high speeds and like just move like and make no sounds, make no traces. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think let's put it as it is. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit. No. Please give me the evidence. Yes, I will agree to everything. But really,
because when you see,
I'll be happy.
When you read a little bit more about the government of USA, how they behaved before, like when they have a big problem, they usually make some extra mission to cover it up.
And they have like 20 story. Scandalous story. I mean,
so
government. If the government can hide things, the government cannot hide things. Don't you delude this as. If the government could hide things, they would hide. You heard of the affair of Monica Lewinsky, Clinton, and everything. You know all about that. If you can imagine, we know everything when it comes to it. Basically, how the President Bill Clinton's penis looks like. If the government will hide anything, she will probably hide the innocent design and the looks of President Clinton's penis. We know all about it. If the government cannot hide it, I presume she will hide that, but you didn't hide that. Give me a break. A banal example, but still, you get the point.
Yeah, it's banal. Yeah, I don't know. I have a question for the end. From your perspective, what is advice you would give to younger person regarding nutrition? So younger person, and what advice would you give to a person who is older than you? So let's say 35 to 50.
Well, we're gonna start with the older generation, 35 to 50. Okay. That's already person is in a way chosen his career, whatever the person is doing, he's chosen the career and he's going at it. I would always advise you eat healthy in a sense that most of your diet consists of plants and obviously some will consist of meats. That the person kind of gather out kind of less those, that the person less eats those, as we stated, 4 evils: sugar, white. I apologize. Basically, that the person eats less sugar, less flour, less salt, and less refined white lipids, fats, in a sense. That the person, in a sense, always orients himself around plant-based, around fruits and vegetables. And the most of diets consists of fruits and vegetables and legumes. And I would, in a sense, advise that to the person, and in a sense, they will be safe. To a younger person, maybe 18-year-old or whatever, I would obviously advise that he or she goes study nutrition. Obviously, for the last, when it comes to the nutrition, it is in a sense a new discipline emerging, and also we kind of gathered a lot of sub-nutritional specialties, such as psychonutrition, such as genetic nutrition, such as specialization, dietitian to a lot of people like etc. Dietitians which work only with patients with chronic disease, dietitians which work only with the with sports and everything. But when it comes to nutrition, it's really now once we are still unraveling this, but we are still unraveling basically the effects of food and mental health and on the organism. It is very diverse, and the support will be necessary because of this changeover, a lot of the changeover which is happening, globalization and everything. Yes, I believe the new rising, basically when it comes to healthcare, the two things when it comes to the healthcare which will become integral. Obviously, you have doctors, surgeons, gastroenterologists, dermatologists, ordinary doctors. That's all fine. But what will be like a support for that, or one part of the healthcare will be psychologists and a nutritionist. This is the rising trend. And these two are two rising trends in healthcare, and they are slowly becoming integrated into the primary healthcare system. Yes, you're going to find your place within the healthcare system, within the food industry, within the food manufacturing, within the food safety. Yes, you're going to find your place to understand if you decide to study nutrition, because it is very diverse and it is very interesting. And from working to a clinic, from working to maybe in a factory on the food quality process, or just maybe working as a freelance nutritionist. It's very vast. You just need to be creative. But if you want that, if you're interested in that, you like to help people, you like food, it's interesting, obviously go for it. I would advise the person that goes for it. It's in a sense, it kind of sounds easy, kind of, nutrients, etc. But there is a lot of chemistry to it, especially biochemistry. Be aware of that. Don't be afraid of that, and just study, and you will end up successful. But the main thing is you need to love it, you need to want it, and you need to enjoy it. But also the humane thing will be you need to enjoy helping people. Helping people, that's the most profound thing that anyone can do, especially by nutritionists, but when it comes to doctors, okay, obviously, but also nutritionists. The main thing is helping people. And if you really like that, you are free to do that, and I would advise you to do that. It's diverse. If you're creative, if you're innovative, you can find your place on the sun.
Nidal, thank you very much. It was a pleasant conversation. I hope we're gonna do it again sometime. Do you have anything you want to share with us for the end? Maybe some inspirational quote.
Well,
live free and prosper.
I'm not really good at that. Just be what you are. Always improve. Always improve. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is an integral part of success. If you fail many times, that's okay. Don't be afraid of make mistakes. Everyone will make mistakes. But once you make a lot of mistakes, you're gonna end up also doing the right things, obviously. And be persistent. Don't be afraid of challenges. Don't be afraid of ever-changing environments, ever-changing challenges, and in a sense, get used to the things that you will always need to improve yourself, and that you will always need to come up with the solution to problems. Get used to that. That will be your integral part of life. Once you get used to this, sooner in life, when you're younger, the life will be easier, and you'll be more happy in a sense. I hope this.
Thank you very much.
Overcomplicated.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you very much for this, for your time. And for you guys that are watching, we have some new guests that we are very glad to call and invite to talk to us in the next period. So stay tuned for that, and see you next episode.